Today we're going to look at the bishop, and we're going to see how much it's worth, how it moves, and how to take advantage of a good bishop and a bad bishop in a game. First thing you want to know is a bishop is worth 3 pawns in a game. It's equivalent to a knight, but they move very differently. We're going to go over the benefits of each. But first thing you want to know is how a bishop moves. And a bishop moves diagonally. So as you can see, a bishop can cover a lot of ground on a chessboard, especially in an open game. Open game meaning there's not a lot blocking the bishop. Now you can tell a big difference between this setup and then let's say we put pawns in front of the bishop and just see the difference that it makes. So let's say we put pawns on b5 and d5. You can already tell a big difference in the movement that the bishop can make. Now the bishop, before he could move all over the board, but now he can only move a very limited space. So bishops really work well in open games, meaning there's not a lot of pawns blocking, or even pieces for that matter blocking, but more importantly pawns. If you have a setup where there are pawns all over the board, it's really, even though you may have both your bishops, well, let's just take a look at this example here. If you have pawns everywhere, especially on light squares, well, you cannot get to your opponent. You can't get past your pawns ever until you start moving your pawns forward. So right now this bishop is really limited in its space. So you want to make sure if you have bishops that you give the bishop room to move. So many times people make a mistake early on, especially in the beginning of the game, even before anything else, is they may make a move like f3 is their first move. Well, this blocks off their knight, and it blocks off, their bishop is blocked off from moving. Can't move past the e2 pawn, and it can't move past the g2 pawn. More commonly, you'll see a move at the beginning. You'll see something like e4 or d4, and what this does is it opens up lanes for your bishop to move, and you always want to have lanes for your bishop to move because, again, as we said, bishops work really well on long diagonals, and if they don't have long diagonals to work with, it's really not going to be beneficial, and you're not going to get the best use out of your bishop. So make sure, especially later on, that your pawns aren't blocking your bishop, and if you have a lot of pawns, you want to make sure that they're not on the same square as your bishop. So if you have a light square bishop, you want to make sure that your pawns are on dark square bishops so you can move around your pawns. You don't want your pawns to be blocking your own bishops. Early on, when your pawns are moving around, it doesn't matter as much as long as your bishop can move, but later on in the middle stage and later on in the game, towards the end game, you want to make sure that your bishops are not locked in. So this is how the bishops work. Hopefully it helped. Use it in your own game.